Aquarian Pools and Spas. If you can dream it, they can build it. More than 50 years in business. Start your dream pool today. Aquarian Pools and Spas. 803-732-3636.
Here's Kendal Briles talking about his idea of offensive balance.
Yeah, for us, we have, a lot of mixed plays, RPO plays, and so a lot of times, the defense determines, whether that is a run or a throw, and so we can call those plays and base down situations, even third down situations, and it kind of depends on what the defense is doing that determines where the ball is going. But productivity over balance always. If you can protect the ball and move the ball and sustain drives and stay on the field and convert when you need to convert, keep the defense on the sideline and let them make adjustments, then that's production.
I thought about this, kind of going over some notes that have been talked about Lenore Sellers in my head. Okay, folks, this is one of those, don't get offended, don't get upset. I'm asking a legitimate question. How much do you think, because let's be honest now, this is Lenore Sellers' third offense coordinator in 3 years.
Correct.
And in a way, they've all been different.
Yeah.
And it felt like Dow Loggins, he wasn't running what Kendal Briles was running, but he was more of hey, man, go make plays on your own.
Right.
Mike Shula was you're going to do this specifically this way, and this is how we do things. And now you got Kendal Briles, who's kind of, A, the system supposedly fits Lenore Sellers better, and B, is more of a, hey, man, go freestyle, go do your thing. When are we putting too much on with RPOs and reading defenses? Because I was listening to Perry Worth talk a little bit about something, and he was talking about, it's going to go back to the 1-read, 2-read, check down, run.
Mm-hmm.
At what point are we just – because the thing with Mike Shula,
yeah,
Briles, Shula, you get the point, Shula. Yeah. But the thing with Mike Shula was, it's too complicated. The Marcus Satterfield thing, even though Lenoris wasn't involved, too complicated. When do we say, what? I'm trying to be fair. I'm not trying to call him dumb or anything. I'm just asking, for all quarterbacks, when are you putting too much information on their plate?
Well, I think there's a difference between complications in terms of what the play call is. That was the accusation for Satterfield is the play calls are too long, right? So he's reading off the Denny's menu and you're out of time, and now we got to go out there and snap the ball to where maybe not everybody's on the same page, as opposed to a Briles that, may only have a one-word call on something, but then it's up to him to go out there and read it as the play is happening. You mentioned with the RPOs or mixed plays, as Kendal Briles calls them, where, all right, you have three options. You can hand it off, you can keep it, or you can throw it here, and you have to make that split-second decision. It depends on what the strengths of the quarterback, in this instance, Lenore Sellers, are. Is he better retaining information in terms of memorizing a play to go out there and run, or is he better at assessing what's happening in the moment and making that decision then? I think that kind of goes back to your point of conversation of, okay, when is too much too much? It depends on what his strengths and weaknesses are in those two regards.
And do we know that? I think, I'm being serious. Do we know? I go back, we know Lenore Sellers. I'm not sure we know. I'm not sure we know. I don't know truthfully what we know about Lenore Sellers. There's a lot of things we base on a 4-game stretch in November of 2024, right?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't great against Alabama. He wasn't great against Oklahoma. He was off to a roaring start against LSU, and who knows where that game goes if he's able to stay healthy. And who knows where maybe that's a catalyst for him coming back and being or continuing on to greatness. It's hard to say. But right now we base a lot of things on Lenore Sellers on what happened in the Missouri, A&M, and the Clemson games of 2024.
Sure.
There were sacks he took last year that weren't Mike Shula's or the offensive line's fault. That it was simply a quarterback that made poor decisions. I mean, what was the one against Missouri where they're down around the goal line and he just simply had to throw the ball away?
Yep.
And that's not a Shula or an offensive line fault. But, you talk about Lenore Sellers. I think in year 4, technically, year 3 of him playing, we're still trying to figure out who this dude is.
Yeah.
And a lot of us want to say he's that guy that physically beat A&M, took over the Missouri game, and beat Clemson.
Yeah, we do. And look, there's so many factors that go into a quarterback being successful or not being successful. Line blocking is one of them. Skill players around you. Play caller is one of them as well. We believe he has the skill set, right?
believe.
Because we saw what we felt like that was on display in those last 6 games.
And
of the
also, I
regular
should
season.
say the NFL seems to think because
and the NFL, yeah, there's a reason why he's projected as high as he is, and why even if he went out this past year, probably still would have been drafted relatively high, maybe not a first rounder, but relatively high because the skill set is specifically there. But yeah, I think there are elements of Lenore Sellers that we're not 100% sure about, and going into a very college specific offense that should be friendly to what his skill set is going to be a real opportunity to see, okay, how do you perform in something that's tailor-made for you, right? Because we looked at even the Dow Loggins offense to agree maybe it was, okay, this isn't exactly built exactly for what his skill set is, but he did fine in it. Last year, obviously, he went the other way. But it's like, okay, now you've got an offense that's tailor-made for exactly the type of player you are, with proof of concept, with similar quarterbacks like KJ Jefferson from Arkansas a couple years ago. Can you go out there and be successful in it? And that's something we expect and hope for, but we haven't seen yet.
Well, I think, and you go back to that Texas A&M game, and it wasn't like Dow Loggins was drawing up plays that took advantage of Lenore Sellers. Lenore Sellers was doing it literally on his own. I mean, if y'all remember back to that game in Columbia 2 years ago, it was basically, it almost seemed like the playbook was like, hey, let a free blitzer run at him and let him make them miss and then make something crazy happen. It wasn't like, oh, man, what a great play call on that. And you kind of go back to the Missouri game as well. And at that, by the time you got to the Clemson game, Sellers was roaring and able to kind of take advantage of situations, and you felt like he did that because I'll be honest, and I like Dow Loggins, and I need to get him back on the show and talk a little App State, but I'm sitting there at the end of the fourth, or close to the end of the fourth quarter, when South Carolina was losing or South Carolina was losing to Clemson in 2024, and I'm like, Loggins has called an awful game. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was like, if they lose this game, it's on Dow Loggins for handcuffing Lenore Sellers. And, of course, Sellers runs it in, and now you're like, Loggins might be the greatest play caller ever. Put that Spurrier fella to the side. I mean, it changed. I'll be honest, they win that game. We aren't thinking the same of Dow Loggins.
Yeah.
It's going to be curious to see. And, again, I go to, for Kendal Briles, where that line is of putting too much on his plate while allowing him to go out and play football and use his abilities the best that they could.
Yeah, and we're going to find out, right? And look, can you make adjustments as the year goes along? Sure. If you feel like, okay, this is a situation, with these RPOs or mixed plays that maybe he's not as good at as he was in practice in the scrimmages, then you can adjust there. And again, it's an offense that we think fits his skill set the best. So if they needed to change things up to mold that a little bit more as the season goes along, we think they can do that. But again, we're just anxious to see it.
Let me ask you something, because this keeps getting said. Why? There is a legitimate reason for this, and you might have the answer. I do know one of the legit reasons. Why do we say that? Why do we say this offense fits his skill set?
Because I think it allows it is better equipped for a quarterback with mobility than a traditional pro style offense.
Okay.
I feel like is the simplest way I can explain it.
Okay, I was going to say KJ. Basically, I was going to say KJ Jefferson.
Right.
Because we say that, we haven't seen the offense, and I don't think what Kendal Briles ran at TCU is what you use as the example, because I think Sonny Dykes was still running that.
Right, and you also had a different type of quarterback in Hoover, who's more of a traditional pocket passer. Because, again, the best thing, and Sellers has a great arm too, but the best thing about him is his physical ability when he can carry the football. Right? And that's what we saw, those magic plays, including third and Sellers against Clemson. When he gets those opportunities, that's where he really, really shines. And we think, we haven't seen it, this is an offense that's going to give him more options to do that.
Yeah. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in on it. It's just, obviously, so many things to analyze, break down, discuss, talk about heading into the season. And obviously, Lenore Sellers, you would all agree, the offensive line has got to be able to block. But how Sellers goes is how this team goes. Speaking of which, last year, Sellers doesn't talk about this. This is clip number 18. Dave, here's Kendal Briles, just basically once again reiterating, we've put last year behind us.
Last year? No, we really hadn't talked about last year. He's highly competitive, and there's been times where he's disappointed with a read or a throw. But a guy that's played a lot of snaps, you can't let that linger. It's like playing corner. You got to forget that last play and line up, play the next one. So he's done that.
We'll find out. Hey, 9 days away, folks, and I don't know if we'll find out against Kent State, but you would expect him to have a big game.
We can find out if it's not working against Kent State.
Unfortunately, there is. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Did it work against Old Dominion?
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
we can be very concerned coming away from it.